location at 910 South Nelson Road, Fruitvale City, Utah, 84037. We're going to bring this meeting, we're going to start this meeting off with a Pledge of Allegiance, which is going to be led by Eileen, and a prayer of thought that's going to be given by Flo Sadler. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, as a city leadership and citizens and workers, we gather and thank you for this beautiful opportunity to live here and to work here. We're thankful for the moisture we've received. We're thankful for this fine country that we live in. We pray that as we deliberate on many items, that we will be able to be kind with each other and thoughtful in our decisions. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Flo. Item 1.3, roll call. Haley, are you leading that out, or is Darren?
Councilmember Gary Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Mark Cuttrell.
Here.
Councilmember Eileen Moss.
Here.
Councilmember George Ray.
Here.
Councilmember Florence Sadler.
Here.
Mayor John Coleman.
Here. Thank you. Item number 1.4 is the City Council training. We set aside 3 minutes of every agenda for the City Council for elected officials to explain and give a presentation on our responsibilities as elected official. Tonight it is assigned to Councilmember George Ray. You got 3 minutes on the clock. Thank you.
This last week I watched a video on the difference between a republic and a democracy. And so it made me think a little more about my responsibility as an elected official. And so as I was going through opportunities, things to think about, I came across the ethics and more particularly the Municipal Officers and Employee Ethics Act. That is the Utah State Code, Title 10-3-13, that explains what we can and can't do, more or less what we can do when it comes to regards to our office for conflicts of interest. And when I went down all the reading, I'm just going to sum it up to, if you get any benefit from your position that is a conflict of interest, and it should be declared. Just because you declare it doesn't mean you have to recuse yourself from any voting. A lot of cities do have additional ordinances that define what their elected officials should do when there's a conflict of interest. As far as I could tell, Fruit Heights has no additional laws. So it's up to us individually to decide what we consider to be ethical, because we have not decided as in a legislative body. So that's my thought at the moment. Be aware of what benefit you're getting from your position and declare it.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much. Item number 2, declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any conflict of interest to discuss tonight? Not seeing or hearing any, we're going to move on to item number 3, which is the public comment period. This item is on in every one of our agendas. This is time for you as residents to say anything you'd like to City Council. We ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to say anything? Yes, please come forward. Would you come to the mic and state your name, please? Thank you.
So I can speak on whatever and stuff on the phone.
Anything you want.
Okay. So my name is Liz Stapp. I live on 13th East. So I would like to speak on the new, is it R16?
R16.
R16. So I understand that the planning commission approved it last night to introduce a new R16 zone. And so I would like to propose that the various R16 zones, that they be designated by the planning commission on the master plan. And so that there's not just random areas that are just chosen, but that the planning commission goes through the city and on the master plan and they designate areas to do that. And so that developers can come in and say, okay, let's do this one, or we're trying to appease the city, sorry. And so also, so I think it needs to be done beforehand, because I think that's part of the reason that we have a planning commission and why we have a master plan. I understand that people do have, the people own property and that we sell property, but I also think that we as property owners have just as much to say for what we want in our area. And sometimes I think that it almost seems that if we don't want what the developers want, then we are condemned for having that opinion. And I don't think that that is fair. I think my opinion is just as important as my neighbors, even if it is different. I felt uncomfortable at the last city council meeting that I attended when Joe Christensen was asking for a rezoning from R12 to R3, and it was denied. And the mayor apologized profusely to Joe Christensen, even saying so much that the city had let him down. It was if the city had promised Joe something that he could not deliver. To me, that seems wrong, that in the mayor's eyes, the decision had already been made without any input from the public. Joe was obviously disappointed, and we, as the people in the audience, were like, what is going on? So I just think that that was, and then he also said, Joe also said that he was approached by the city to change his zoning, to change his from a single dwelling to a multi-dwelling, and then that Brandon Green approached him. And at the last planning commission, Brandon Green came and he said that was not true, that he did not approach him. And so I just think, who can we believe? I don't know who to believe. I don't know who to trust. Who can we trust on these issues? Is this about money? Is this about the state? The development on top of the hill over here, there's mudslides. It's not secure. So I just wonder who we can trust in this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a question on decorum. Is this a point where we would comment on business items, or would we comment publicly when you get to those business items?
It would be best if you commented now, since it's the items that you are here for is not on a public comment period. It's not on a public hearing. It would be best if you commented now.
Thank you. So I'm Don Benedict, 164 South Village Way. First off, thank you. Honestly, one of the reasons we moved to Fruit Heights is because of the city we have and what you guys create and the ordinances that you help enforce to keep the city the way we want. I'm here to talk about the ordinance on swimming pools and the setbacks that were changed a few years ago to try to protect neighbors. And in doing so, I think there was an unintended consequence of moving that setback to 10 feet. The spirit of it is to protect residencies from either side, meaning having a pool away from a living residence. And we have that in the ordinance of 20 feet to make sure that it's away. But by making the ordinance 10 feet, it really restricts the, I guess, footprint of putting a pool in your yard. And so what it really has done, it has created a challenge in trying to fit, I guess, a decent sized pool when you're putting your hard-earned money into building a project. I fully support keeping that variance from another neighbor's dwelling. But it is interesting that we have a 10-foot setback for a pool, but yet we can build a building 3 feet from your property line that towers over someone else's property. So as we get to the part around talking about pools, I would just ask support or looking at the minor change that was supported by the Planning Commission around the setback from your internal property line to bring us in line with a lot of the cities that are around us that have it at 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. We've got it at 10, which if you look at some pools that went in over the last few years while this ordinance was in place, I think Darren can probably attest, you've got people coming saying we need variances, so it's taking up resources from the city of us trying to get variances. So if we keep the setback in place from a residency, you accomplish the same thing as the 10-foot variance internally if you shorten it. And the internal variance actually ends up being somewhat irrelevant with, as long as you keep the distance from a neighbor's dwelling. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. My name is Cody Beckett. I'd like to comment on business item 5.8. At our cottage meeting, that was probably a few weeks ago, we came up with several good ideas. One of the good ideas that I thought came up was that we have an announcement, well, in place of an application for chickens. In the Ridge Runner newsletter that goes out maybe once a year, we have a list of the regulations or the rules behind chickens. Instead of having an application that you make people come in to sign to say they're going to follow the rules, we don't have an application for cars where there are ordinances for parking on the street in the winter, but I do see it on the Ridge Runner every winter. It says you may not park your car overnight on the road in the winter. So I think that's a great way to do it. Instead of having people fill out an application, it feels more like we're asking for permission to have chickens, even though the ordinance is here to give us permission to have chickens, if that makes any sense. And then I would just say, don't be too overbearing when you decide how many chickens can go on a certain size lot. You can have more chickens on a lot than you'd think. If you don't have chickens, you may not know, you're welcome to come visit my house, or maybe Melissa would even offer to share how many chickens you can fit in a space. Anyways, we're grateful we can have chickens and you're proposing that. Just try not to be too overbearing on us. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me make a comment real quick. So the chicken ordinance was not passed last night by the planning commission. They did not have time to discuss it. They had other things on their agenda. They had a hard stop at 8 o'clock. So that is actually getting tabled on our agenda tonight, and that will not be discussed or decided on tonight. Sorry. It's on the agenda because there's a chance it was going to be discussed. So thank you so much. It won't be discussed until Planning Commission next month, which is this month. It would be the fourth Tuesday of this month.
And the things that were decided during that meeting, or maybe those two.
Yes. Yes. So the tentative ordinance is something, we can send that out. It's not a problem at all. I can send that to you. But a lot of everything that was discussed in that meeting was put into that ordinance. It's pretty simplified. I can send that over to you this evening if you like. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing or hearing anything, we're going to move on to item number 4.1, but I don't see one from you, City Council. Okay. We're going to skip that and go on to our business items. Business item number 5.1 is a public hearing about Municipal Code 2024-003, Title 9A, Public Utilities. I look for a motion to move into public hearing. Thank you, Gary. Second it. Second from Mark. All in favor of moving into public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Any opposed? Do you want to leave this?
So as you remember, we brought 9A up a few weeks ago with the attorney, and this is the same ordinance. We actually posted the public hearing different than what it needed to be. 9A has to do with utilities and how they're billed throughout the city, as far as if you have a rental, that the utility now is going to be required to stay into the property owner's name and how that process works. And it goes through the water system, the sewer system, and how those things work in this ordinance. Now there's a lot of red lines and a lot of different things in this ordinance. If you've read through it, that's just showing the changes that are going to be in it and the things that are being taken out of it. So
Since this is something that's already already previously been discussed. I would open up, is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this ordinance? The ordinance is going to keep utilities in the homeowner's name and not move them to the renter's name, thus making it so that the city can follow and get payment from the landowner and not the renters. Do we have any comments at this point in time? Any discussion items you guys want to discuss while it's in public?
The cash deposit still the amount. Also submitted herewith as a cash deposit of blank dollars.
That part's being taken out, because we don't do a deposit in the city.
Okay.
So that's being taken out. It falls back into the consolidation fee.
Yeah.
And when we went through and changed all that.
Thank you. That's what I was wondering.
Great. I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you, Flo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. George. All in favor of closing public hearing, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would entertain a motion on item number 5.1, Municipal Code 2024-003, Title 9A, Public Utilities.
Just a quick question on the meter. Talks about the meter is the homeowner's responsibility or the person receiving the water's responsibility to.
So the meter falls under the city up to a 3-inch, and once it's bigger than 3 inch, it falls on the individual. If it's bigger than 3 inch.
If it's bigger. Okay.
But
Okay.
also with that, if it's a new building permit and those kind of things, it's charged on the building permit.
Well, because this says under 9A-01-090, it says meters larger than 1 inch shall be installed and maintained by the persons, firm, etc., receiving the water service through the meter.
Sorry, that was supposed to have a line through it. That's what it used to say in our ordinance, years ago. That was actually supposed to be lined out. So
If I'm understanding the mark right, it looks like it's the thing that's being added. It is in red, but it's underlined with, it's all in red and it's
But I
underlined.
think it's not underlined, it should have the hash mark through it. So
It does,
right
it
now, as
does.
a city, we will install the meter, and if it's a new home, we charge that on the building permit. If it's a replacement meter, that city replaces that meter. But with all the new electronic and all those kind of things, it's just once you start getting to bigger size meters, the cost of them
And that makes,
just skyrocket.
no, and it makes sense to me
So-
with the bigger meters, but it just looks like it's putting it on the,
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be
Receiving the
across
water.
that mark too, not underlined red.
and
So,
I think you're seeing it there, it's not, would you agree it's not marked out? Or,
yeah, we'll take that out with your,
Will we be able to see a clean copy of that?
after it's approved, yeah, we'll have the whole clean copy.
It's really difficult right now to see what's really intended, the way it is, without a clean copy. We're seeing all this red and all this, I mean, it's like,
Okay, we can do it any way you want. If you want me to come back and have a complete clean copy, I can do that. The last time I was requested, they wanted to see the changes.
I actually like seeing,
With all the changes.
I like seeing the changes and I like seeing where it is in red and where it's crossed out, and maybe it's in other spots, it's correct. I just,
But hasn't the attorneys gone through this and they've taken out the stuff that has to be taken out and put in the new stuff to fit the other ordinances within the state?
Yeah, so I've worked with our attorney on this one, to make sure that we have the opportunity to change it. Because right now, our ordinance states that rental can be in anybody's name. It's created some issues with, the renter running up a bill of $1,000 and then all of a sudden leaving, and then no recourse. And we're trying to get with the homeowner, the property owner to pay those kind of things. A lot of communities have switched where it is the homeowner, the property owner, that receives those bills for all the utilities, and that they pay those. Or they do have an option opportunity to have a co-signer that can pay it, but ultimately, the homeowner receives the bill for it. And that's part of the changes throughout this ordinance, to cover those things. And there is also, like you said, there used to be, the homeowner is responsible for the meter. The city always took on that expense, and so that was something that I wanted mine highlighted out, and I think it may got highlighted and turned red.
So I think there's a potential misunderstanding that might just be taking place here. I think that the concern I sense is that I think most of us like to see the changes, like to see what has changed. And so we're not asking you to change that. But the concern is that here we've just found something that sounds like, it just sounds like it was like, so we're not sure what else is, we're just not sure what else is supposed to be crossed out. So we're just not knowing what we can trust or not trust, and
Okay.
what we're
I agree.
that's the only thing that I think that's the only thing that I think is being said.
So
Now-
in the future, maybe an idea would be to have, it's really nice to see the changes, but then a clean copy of what we're actually gonna pass, so that it's ready for signature at the time that we pass it, because this is not ready for signature.
I can do that. I can bring up and have a clean copy with all the changes already out of it, so there's no red on it, and then bring up the one with the change, so you'll have two documents to look at. If that's what you'd like.
That would be helpful.
Okay, no, I can switch to that, so.
Okay, so,
Maybe we table this until next meeting, get a clean copy, and move forward. Looks like we're almost there.
so actually, let me just get clarification. If we table this, we don't have to do another public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So I have a motion from Eileen to table this, or Title IX, A, Public Utilities.
Second that.
Second from George. All in favor, oh, any further discussion? All in favor?
One thing is, we've had this up in front of us for several meetings. So keep tabling it. I'm just concerned, when do we get it approved to move on?
Next meeting?
So
Just a concern I have.
and I agree with that concern, but I think that a greater concern is making sure that we know what we're agreeing to, and just being confident in that. And so I think that was the concern I heard.
So I have a motion from Eileen, a second from George. All in favor of tabling this for our next city council meeting? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 5.1 has been tabled for next meeting. Item number 5.2 is a public hearing on the tentative budget for fiscal year 2024, 2025. I would entertain a motion to move it into public hearing.
Motion to move into public hearing for 5.2.
Thank you, Gary. Second from Mark. All in favor of moving into public hearing, say aye. We are now in public hearing.
So the document that's coming up is the tentative budget for this next budget year, 24-25 budget year. The staff has spent a lot of time on this, going through and reviewing the budget and looking at the revenues and the different things that happens with the budget, and proposing what the expenses and the revenues are going to be for this year. This is the tentative budget that needs to be approved by the first meeting in May, or so this meeting. But this is not the final budget. We also can go through and we can still continue to have changes if needed as we go through this budget. Also, along with that, if there's going to be a truth in taxation, we'll have to go through that process too. As a city staff, we are recommend that there will be a truth in taxation this year to help increase the revenue that we're bringing in, because we're actually had a decrease in property taxes that the city received this year. So I think we need to look at that and bring that up. So
Specifically, Darren, what you're saying is that unless we had a truth in taxation hearing, last year we took in more money, And as we said before with the state, the way they do it, we actually end up with, more than $40,000 less coming in from property taxes, unless, based on the state rate that they're giving us. So unless we actually have a true taxation and increase our property taxes, the city has less, property taxes coming in.
Yes, and that's one of the hardest things to understand if you have not gone through this budget process is to how property taxes work in the state of Utah. And that if you're not maintaining a rate and every couple of years looking at a true taxation, you do actually, even though you have new homes coming in and stuff like that, the money you receive, it does begin to drop because of the rate change that the state does on that percentage. So this is the budget. If there's any questions or those kind of things from the community, we'll kind of go through them and bring that up. So Haley, you just want to start going through a couple of the pages. So the first one up is the revenues, where we think we'll be at the end of this year and those kind of things. As we go down through that, it starts with the general budget, which is the budget that's used from property taxes, from sales tax, from fund transfers from the water fund, from the sewer, from those funds going into the general fund, which covers capital projects and those kind of things that happen throughout the city, and the day-to-day costs that happen in the city is where that money comes from. If you look at our capital projects, we transfer money from the general fund, which is from property taxes. We transfer that money into capital projects, and we transfer that money into B&C road funds, which is our capital projects for roads. So there's money transferred at that time to go into those different things. So as we go throughout the years, we can save enough money to do projects in this city. As you know, Fru Heights City saves enough money to do a project. We don't bond, we don't go into debt to do projects. We save money to do projects. So as you see, as we go through the years, one year we may do a water project and do a lot of water projects. The next year, it may be road projects that we go through and do. It's because we save those monies to do those projects so we don't have to go into debt. Go to the next one. Go to, what is the water funds first? Class C is just money we get for, from the state for our roads. We get a certain amount of money for those. And we also take our transportation fee that everybody has on their utility bill, goes into roads. That's the only thing that money can be used for off that fee. It can only be used for road projects and those kind of things. It can't be used for other things. So that's one good thing about a transportation fee. When it's set up that way, it can't be used for other things. We can't take that money to do water projects. We can't take that to buy vehicles or those kind of things. It's only can be used for roads. So that's a way to look at that. The water fund, the sewer fund, the solid waste fund, and the stormwater fund, those funds all have to be able to run on their own for all your maintenance and the cost in those departments. As you can see, the water fund, there was an increase in January on the water fund on your utility bill. Weber Basin right now has sent out an estimate to the city that their cost will, over the next 3 years to 4 years, will be over $100,000 on the water we purchase from Weber Basin for drinking water. That cost has to be paid for out of this fund. We have to make sure this fund is running in the black. This is also where we collect our fees and those kind of things to plan for projects coming up, new water lines, replacing old water lines, all come out of this, along with maintenance for water breaks or anything that happens in those kind of things. So, and then also wages come out of all those kind of things.
What is the sum on that current fund?
The water fund?
Yeah, this fund that has available money in it.
As far as our Our fund balance?
Yeah, is it like a surplus?
So we have to maintain, sorry, let me grab my glasses. We have to maintain, by the state, we're required to maintain a certain amount in the fund balance for each one of these accounts.
So this is just one of many buckets
Yes.
that are designated for different items.
Yes, and so, by state law, we're required to keep a certain amount in there for reserves, so if there's ever an emergency or anything like that, we have the funds to cover that. So if it's not budgeted and stuff like that, and we had a major disaster or something like that, we have monies in reserve to cover to fix those things, and we have to do that by state law. And there's a percentage that we have to maintain in that. And you have to do that with each one of the funds and with the general fund, you have to maintain a certain amount in there. So, if you go to sewers next, Haley. So with sewer, you are going to see a big increase this year, on your sewer rates. It'll be about $11 per resident, increase. With the new West Davis corridor, it ended up taking about half the area that Central Davis District used for part of their treatment process. And also with all the new EPA rules for treating sewer, it's a huge, huge increase. So, you know, the average bill, I think right now is $27, and it's gonna go to $38 a month for sewer increase.
That's $11 per month. not
Per month, per month, per month. So, it's a huge increase, and it's it's a big deal. The majority of that account is just passed through. The city collects the money for the Central Davis Sewer District. We take a little bit for admin cost, sending out the bills, bank fees, and we also keep a tiny bit of a fund balance there. So if we're doing a project and we hit a sewer line and it floods somebody's house or something like that, we have a fund balance in that account to cover those costs. So, or a portion of those costs. Next one, Haley. And this one is the Stormwater Utility Fund. So the Stormwater Utility Fund, we actually just passed the Stormwater Ordinance, which was required by the state of Utah, that we have an ordinance in place to cover the cost of all the new regulations coming along with stormwater. And it's a big increase from what we've had to do. We're now required to camera and clean over 20% of our stormwater system every year, which is a huge cost. It's about a $30,000 cost to cover those costs. We sweep the streets. We're required to sweep them more to keep that stuff going out of the storm drains. And then we also have projects that are coming up that we need to pay for. And that's a cost every month to every resident, to be able to run that fund how we need to. So next one, Haley. Next one's going to be solid waste, which is our garbage. There's also an increase in garbage this year. And it's about almost a 10% increase in hauling our garbage and disposing of our garbage. So you'll see that on your bill as that comes out, which is about $1.25 per can is what the increase ends up being for the cost of that. The part of the increase is fuel cost of equipment. And we're getting to the point where we're going to have to start hauling garbage out of Davis County and hauling it to out of county landfills. Out by Tooele, there's one, and those kind of things. So those costs are increasing. I will tell you that Fruit Heights City with their green waste program saves the landfill about 15%, which is huge for a small city like us to save on garbage going into the landfill. It's a great thing. The other thing that will be coming up that the integrated waste is talking about is, do I want to say it's mandatory? I want to say that they're pushing for recycling programs for each of the cities to start with. Recycling is a great thing. They can resell some of it. If we're doing a recycling program, there's more things that they can take out and save and recycle to cover that cost. But that, once again, that's another cost to our residents. I've talked to different cities. I've talked to different haulers to start a recycling program. Just to buy the cans will cost for Hyde City just about $100,000 to take to all the residents. And then along with that, hauling fees look to be around anywhere from $4 to $6 a month. Integrated Waste is working on some different options that are coming up that the city managers have been involved with along with their board members. But that is something that may be coming out sooner than later with the requests that are going on. So, and just another increase that's going out to each one of our residents on that.
Yeah, my son has a rental home lately. And when he was changing renters over, getting ready to sell it, it ended up being a meth house. He had to clear the house out, carpet, all the stuff. I took that, I had to make a special, I took that to the dump farm. I had to make an appointment to take that to the dump and be there at a specific time, which I did. And I drove through and they told me to go park in a certain area. They would take me where I needed to handle that. And so I did that. So finally a guy came on his big rig and said, follow me over here. He took me over where all the garbage trucks, all of the ones that were coming from the city were backing up and dumping it. And I backed up that dump trailer and dumped that supposedly hazardous waste in the middle of everything else that's being dumped from the cities coming from the trucks that from all over the county. I dumped it with everything else. And I paid a fee on top of everything else we've done because it's going to be handled special, and there was nothing special about it. It was dumped there with everything else. Somewhere along the process, and I realize this isn't a city thing, but it's so easy for governments, for the sewage, for the water, for the county, for the city, rather than look for ways to manage this and drive costs down. I'm not moaning at you, but this is my moment.
It's a public hearing, you're welcome to, so.
But somewhere along the line, in private business, you have to find ways to work at cutting costs and be more creative in terms of how we do that. We don't do that very well in government, and we're talking about taxes here, and once again, because the tax rates change, we think it's okay for a city to just go and change it so the rate was what it's always been, all the costs have gone up. I'm looking for, across the board, when we're looking for ways to reduce our costs, and I realize even if we're just reducing the increase that we have to have, I think we have to be more vigilant in trying to find ways to reduce that, because at this point in time, everything is going up. We've got to look at ways to be able to manage that rather than simply passing it on to the taxpayer.
And I agree with you. And there's a lot of these budgets, if you looked at them, looked through our expenses, the staff and myself have spent many hours discussing what things that we can lower for our residents because of the different increases coming in, but to still be able to cover the budget for all the increases we have to pay for contractors, for water and those kind of things. And I'll tell you right now, it's been really hard to go through and do all those kind of things. And you look, some of the things we have dropped, there's things that are just straight pass-throughs. Yeah, they're almost double on some of those things. But that's not a cost, that I can manage as that. But I do, yes, I agree on a lot of that. But once again, everything in the world's going up in price right now. And and it doesn't matter, you know, we still as a city, being with no commercial tax base, it falls on each of the residents, and it's a big increase. And I understand that.
So, Darren, can I
But
jump in real quick?
yeah,
On top of that, the amount that we're getting from property tax is going down. Like, anyway.
yeah. So, but as we go through those funds,
But on top of that, it's recently been going up. For years it's been going up. I've been paying more property taxes every year until the last year or two. And then it's slipped a little bit.
but
It doesn't, it's not always going down.
the percentage come to the city does go down. As you remember when we were when you were on the council, by not maintaining a rate, the amount the city gets in the property tax does actually decrease, even if you are getting more homes. That's the hardest part about understanding property taxes.
Well, it may go down for you, it goes up for me.
It's still, you're right, it still goes up for me on my home, it still goes up for you on your home. But the amount the city gets from those taxes does go down.
Sounds like it's going up.
Yes, I agree with you. If the city doesn't maintain their rate, other entities increase theirs, animal control, you know, all those increase theirs so they can keep it. Ours will continue to go down because of that. So, but once again, going through the staff and myself, we have spent a lot of time on what the city can do better to save on money and not increase a lot of things, but there's a lot of pass-throughs that the city has to do, and there's a lot of costs that have increased. That as a city, we still have to pay those increases. So it's a pass on to our residents. So we don't have the benefit of having 2 or 3 car lots, which would be an amazing thing for Fruit Heights if they did. So, because then we could really collect some good money. But Haley, on the vehicles. So this is our vehicle fund. We are looking to purchase a new big truck this year. We've almost spent $40,000 in repair on one we have, just trying to keep it running. We figure it's time to say that's a waste of money and purchase one that works. So there's an increase on that this year. But once again, with our vehicle policy, at the rate that city can buy a truck, we really try to keep them for 1 to 2 years, and we're able usually to be able to sell those trucks for what we paid for them or really close. And then we've kept trucks in warranty. And it's just been a benefit for the city on that, even though it looks like the city's buying new trucks, we are turning around and selling them and being able to collect a better amount for those trucks at the end of a couple years. So,
Thank you.
any other questions for me before I sit down? And then you guys can come up and talk to the council all you want. Okay.
Thank you, Darren. Do we have any comments from the public tonight?
Dale Kunkel, 1624 Old Lake Lane. Just want to commend city staff for the great information that goes out every single month in the Ridge Runner. And as I was reviewing Ridge Runner and looking at some of the things that were already touched on here, I mean, that it's a pretty difficult pill to swallow, I think, right now, amongst everything else that's going on in our national economy that impacting everybody in a very real way. And it's difficult to see our utility costs, the example that was provided here, potentially going up to 12%, it seems like, if I did my math right there. That's difficult. And by no means am I saying stop that. But also, I was also concerned, as was already just discussed, the property tax, I don't know how to say it, as it's already been represented, a difficult way to explain it, of despite more revenue being collected, what is actually going and earmarked for the city seems to be going down. I wonder if it doesn't make sense with the culture of our city, the city of good neighbors, and the legislative body here. We don't necessarily have political parties, right? We have pine cones and sagebrush, which is really just to kind of have some order to the election process, but we're a cohesive unit. And I wonder if it doesn't make sense for the culture of our city for the legislative body, as the mayor pointed out in the last city council meeting, that in his tenure here, he's come to the understanding, and correct me if I don't want to misspeak for you, but the primary role of the city council members is to be fiscally responsible, for lack of a better way. And so I wonder if it doesn't make sense that the city council members aren't a little more involved in the disclosure to the city of what's going on and the promotion of residents trying to understand how that's impacting. We elected you to be mindful of this, and sometimes I think some of these more difficult messages probably shouldn't just be delivered in our monthly newsletter that comes with our water bill, but from our elected officials explaining, and I guess I'm tasking you with articulating to the rest of the residents why that weirdness is happening with the collection of property taxes, but yet we seem to be getting less money. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dale. Anyone else? Hearing or seeing any, I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close our public hearing.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Gary. All in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? At this point, I would entertain a motion for item number 5.2, tentative budget, fiscal year 2024, 2025.
I motion to approve the tentative budget for 2024 through 2025.
Thank you, Mark.
I'll second it.
Second from Flo. Any further discussion on the budget?
Yes.
Good.
Is it possible to add a line in the legislative expenditures and call it community project funding or legislative directive spending?
That's where you want to take your salary and say where it goes, right?
Yeah, well, not me per se, but the council per se. So for everybody else's information here, I've submitted an ordinance to the council to approve to allow a declaration of unpaid service for legislative members. And with that money to put it into a fund called community directed spending, community project funding, where we can choose projects that we feel are important, bike trails, cemeteries, or one that's been approached to us. I don't even know the name of it.
What, mayor about this?
Right. As a way to just to be more involved, to have the council be more actively involved in where that spending goes. We typically don't spend any money. That all goes to the staff all year long. You guys are really the ones that are spending money, not us. But this small fund could be legislative directed.
Okay, I like it. Seeing that this is just a tentative budget, I think the staff has noted that, and that can be something that's included in the final budget. I appreciate that. Thank you, George Ray. Any other questions, other comments? I have a motion on the table from Mark and a second from Flo to approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. All in favor of approving the fiscal budget, the tentative budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, say aye.
Mayor,
Aye.
roll call, please.
Oh, you're right.
Gary Anderson.
Aye.
Mark Russo.
Aye.
Eileen Moss.
Aye.
George Ray. Lauren Southern.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5.3, Municipal Code 2024-005, update to Title 10 swimming pool ordinance. Now, I know this went, come on, Gavin, yes. This went to Planning Commission, discussed with Planning Commission, and is coming to us as an approved or recommendation from the Planning Commission. Would you?
Yep. So, this was taken, we had a public hearing a week ago on this, and then we took it to Planning Commission on Monday. And they continued to have a little discussion on the setbacks and where they thought they should be. At the end of it, the planning commission recommended forwarding it to the city council with a 8-foot setback, changing it from 10 to 8. And that was the recommendation for approval from them to the city council.
And that's the only change.
That's the only change to it, still maintaining a distance from the neighboring home and those kind of things. So it was just the only change to that ordinance.
And isn't that more in alignment with some of the other setbacks?
Yeah, it lines up with some of the other communities and stuff like that where their setbacks are. So it's just a recommendation from the planning commission.
Great, thank you, Darren. Do we have a motion on item number 5.3?
Is there any more discussion on it? I know that we
Well,
have somebody that.
Yeah, we can have it, so normally we have a motion whether to accept or deny, and then we have further discussion on that motion. That makes sense.
I'll make a motion that we accept the planning commission's recommendation to update municipal code 2024-005, Title 10 swimming pool.
Great, thank you, Eileen.
I'll second that.
Second from Gary. Okay, any further discussion on this? Any questions?
Well, Mr. Benedict mentioned that some cities are 3 feet, and you mentioned that some cities are 8 feet, so I don't know what is reasonable.
So planning commission actually gave us this ordinance last year and had it at 6 feet. And as a city council, I think we moved it back up to 10, but we maintained the 20-foot the 20-foot from the pool neighboring house. I think it is where it is, and I think we are going to continue seeing, if we keep it at 10, we'll keep seeing pushback and people wanting variances. And I think variances are a bad form of government. If people are asking for variances, then we need to look at what they're asking for variances for and make it acceptable for everyone.
So it would be safe to say that the council made a mistake last year with going 10 feet, and that we should apologize and go with 6 feet. Except last year.
We should go to 2 feet.
So the planning commission recommended an 8-foot. There was last year, in this discrepancy in our ordinances. So in one spot it said 10, in one spot it said, so it was unclear at that time. And so Brandon Green recommended we clean it up and make it agree with itself. And then the planning commission has recommended, Kaysville is 8 feet, right? And so this would bring it into line with what Kaysville is doing, so that if you have a swimming pool company look at, regulations in an 84037 zone, there wouldn't be a difference between what Kaysville is doing and what Heights is doing, was some of what was.
Farmington is 5 feet, Layton is 4, but Kaysville is 8.
So what it really comes down to, and I feel very strongly about this, is making sure that the 20-foot distance is there, because that's unfair to neighboring properties to put a swimming pool that's less than 20 feet to a neighboring house. Part of Darren and the staff's recommendation is to keep it at 8. If we go down to 6, you could barely put a pool chair or something next to a pool and still be on your property line. I think the recommendation of 8 is definitely in line with some comments. Any further discussion on that?
The only comment I have is that I agree that in general, I'd like to stay away from offering exceptions, but I wouldn't say that we would eliminate them, because there are times that it does make sense to make an exception, but if you have a large percentage of the people that are putting in pools asking for an exception, that's time to look at the ordinance again and see if it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. So I have a motion on the table. All in favor of accepting Municipal Code 2024-005, an update to Title 10 swimming pool ordinance. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good heavens, I'm gonna learn this one day.
Yay.
Mark Bishop,
Yes.
Eileen Moss,
Aye.
George Ray, Lawrence.
Nay.
Item number 5.4, Municipal Code 2024-006, new zone R16.
Okay, at the last council meeting, the council directed the staff to draft a new R16 ordinance. That's what you see before you tonight. I just want to go through a few of the details and then answer some questions. This has now been before the Planning Commission on 2 different meetings since the last council meeting. There was a public hearing on it. So this R16 zone, in the purpose, under the purpose, it says that it allows higher density, single-family, multifamily residential development. That last sentence is pretty deliberate. This zone aims to promote more affordable housing options. I think that's a key word that we're trying to use as we're moving forward in the city, is that we are trying to create more affordable housing options. It may not be everything that everybody wants, but that's the aim of this, and I think that's key to keep that in mind. So this allows for permitted uses or single-family dwellings and multi-family dwellings. Under the area and frontage regulations, a single-family dwelling can be put on a minimum 6,000 square foot lot. So it has to be at least 6,000 square feet to put one single-family home on a lot. Under the multifamily dwelling, which is also a permitted use, it would allow up to 4 units to be attached, common wall construction. So you could have 4 units side by side. And that, in addition to that, that project area cannot exceed 6 dwelling units per gross acre. And then there's the clarifier that public streets and rights of way shall not be included in gross acreage. Typically, if you're going to put a public street on a subdivision or in a project, that takes up about 30% of the project area. So that would have to be deleted out of their gross acreage before they made their calculation. One of the questions that came up in the public hearing is that, well, can you put 4 units on a 6,000 square foot lot? No, you can't. That's what that says, is that if you were going to put 4 units on property that's zoned R16, you would need a minimum of 24,000 square feet. So you could do it on a 24,000 square foot lot, not a 6. Lot widths are 60 feet. That again would be for a single family dwelling. You'd never get 4 units attached to each other on a 60-foot wide lot. It'd never fit. What?
Does it need to say something to that respect in here, that the 60-foot lot, that so somebody's not trying to put a twin home on a 60-foot wide lot?
I don't know. I thought about that.
I'm just wondering if you move the lot width up into the lot size of a single family dwelling at the 60 foot. So take that sentence and move it, instead of having it be a C, have it move up into.
And be a number 2.
Number 2.
That's not a bad idea. It just makes it a little easier to understand that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. The front and rear setbacks would be set at 20 feet, side yard setbacks at 8 feet. And then the side yard on a corner lot would be 20 feet. Then the only other thing I wanted to point out is the height regulation was set at 30 feet. That's again a deliberate attempt to limit units in this zone to 2 stories above ground. A lot of our other zones have a 35-foot, and you could potentially squeeze a 3-story home, and I think we want to avoid that above ground.
that people are trying to maximize the size that they build. 30 feet would definitely limit that to a 2-story building above ground. So that was the other thing that was discussed. Just a couple of things that kind of come out in the public hearing. One was that should the city identify areas in the general plan where this zone can be used? I don't think that's a bad idea. That's something that takes quite a bit of time and effort to do something like that. The other thing that kind of was discussed is whether there should be a minimum lot size or a minimum property size to use this zone. For instance, 1 acre. Should there be a minimum size of property that this zone could be applied to? Neither one of those things are incorporated into what you're seeing here, but there's something that could be considered at a later time, and we could talk about the general plan piece of it. I think there's ideas on both sides of that. Any questions?
I do have one question, Jeff. In a previous life of our ordinances years ago, one of the things that was discussed in this type of ordinance is there doesn't seem to be anything that specifically is precluding a unit on top of another unit. So you have, and I think as we're calling this an R16 zone, meaning a residential zone, we're not looking for a stacked unit ability, right? I mean,
Tell me what you mean by stacked unit.
first floor is one unit, second floor is another unit.
So like an ADU?
Well, no, a separate apartment.
Duplex.
No, not even a duplex. I'm talking about,
Two-story. Just a two-story individual.
yeah, an individual home and individual home on top of each other. We
I would say,
used to have an ordinance that said, and that was one of the things that you could not do. And perhaps there is a place for that. We certainly have it in our
Yeah.
R3. But I wonder if there needs to be a place in this ordinance that says that units cannot be stacked one on top of another. Because that kind of defeats our purpose. Because remember, we talked about one of the things that we looked at was saying with Ms. Christensen was, will the person who owns this, even if it's common wall, will they own the property underneath their unit? And that was one of our concerns. Well, obviously, if you have one unit on top of another, then they're not going to own their property.
Under this multifamily dwelling B1, it says up to 4 units may be attached with common wall construction. We could just add the language to the end of that sentence on a single level. Because the intent is to not allow stacked units.
Right, and so maybe.
The intent is to not allow what you're saying, basically apartments.
Right, and so what I'm saying is maybe just as a number 2, even if they have a common wall construction, that they cannot be a stacked unit. So specify that in there as a part of this. That would make it more affordable. Well, I think there's a place for that in the R3 zone, but this is a residential.
Yeah, I agree.
zone.
I agree. This is not the place for that. You could go R3 if you wanted to do that.
Yeah. So this is a residential. One of the things that Governor Cox has asked for is more affordable single-family homes. And this is a starter home. This is a way to address that within our ordinance.
Starter homes could be using this.
Correct. So can we do that?
Yes. Yeah, that's easy.
And you believe that that's appropriate?
Yes.
nice, thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Any comments from the public on this, since we are in public hearing?
We're not in-
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're not in public hearing.
We don't have public hearing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My bad. Okay, so we have municipal code 2024-006, new zone R16. Any further comments? I'd entertain a motion to this.
I motion that we approve municipal code 2024-006, new zone R16 with the additional comments of fixing those two areas. Adding that.
Okay, thank you,
I'll
Mark.
second it.
Thank you, Mark and Flo. Any further discussion on this motion?
My one other question is there a way, Jeff, for us to delineate at the time of our rezone, whether we're going to allow up to 4 units to be constructed, or if it's only going to be 2 units? Because 4 units becomes not necessarily a single-family home thing, because they can't necessarily own 6,000 square feet of land underneath their unit.
Yes, absolutely, and what my recommendation is always gonna be is that, at the time a rezone is proposed for this, we need a full site plan for the council to review, so you will know exactly what you are rezoning for, and if we don't have that, then we won't consider it. So I think that's something we can do administratively, but absolutely, you need to know what you are rezoning for, and you're approving only what's on that site plan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. So we have a motion on the table. No further discussion. Haley?
Gary Anderson,
Yay.
Mark Castrow,
Yay.
Diane Moss,
Aye.
George Ray,
Yay.
Lauren Hutton.
Aye.
Item number 5.5, municipal code 2024-007, title 11A, update to new state legislative requirements. Something that's been on our agenda, tabled a couple times, rediscussed, tabled a couple more times.
I feel bad. I tabled it and I read through the whole thing and didn't have any other changes.
Okay,
So Mayor, there were some questions that you told me to get back to Brad with. One of them was Councilmember Anderson asked about if we can just put in there if state law change, we can automatically update to that. Our attorney recommended, yes, that can be done, but he recommends not to do that because of sometimes how that state law changes. If it automatically just swapped and it was something that counter some of our other ordinances or other issues, he recommended making sure that it was voted on by the council for that change.
great. I like that's a good recommendation. Attorneys do good sometimes.
There was, the other thing about Councilmember Ray's comments about a couple of terms, and there's a repeated phrase in there. I asked him about those two. Those are just kind of a legal option to be able to come in and back the city and have it legally done to cover the city. So it wasn't really, he said, yes, in a way, you can look at that as you're just repeating the same thing right here, but it has to do with the legal portion of it and being able to defend the city in those actions. So that's why that portion's in there.
Thank you, Darren. This has been discussed a few times. Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept municipal code 2024-007, title 11A, update to new state legislation requirements.
I second it.
Thank you, Flo. Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion this time?
My only discussion is it's still disappointing that the state does not understand that cities that are so close to bill that have so little control, and yet they continue to mandate, and I mean, they get mad when the federal government mandates to them, and that's exactly what they're doing to us.
I agree, and I will have some choice words with our legislators before we go into session this next year. I was told, which I thought was gonna go through, and I was told a couple times, this was gonna be changed,
And
and
nothing changed.
nothing changed. So I'm very disappointed. Haley?
Carrie Anderson,
Yay.
Mark Ruffalo,
Aye.
Eileen Moss,
I know it's going to pass anyway, I'm going to say nay.
George Ray,
Yay.
Lauren Sutherland,
Yay.
Item number 5.6, periodic update to public works standards. Last update was in 2018. Lane, thank you for all you've been doing the past 2 days. Appreciate you and your team. You guys are great.
So as John stated, last time these were updated was in 2018. Our standards are what all of our developers and contractors should be referring to on what we put in the ground and above ground. There was quite a bit that was changed. I was just a few things. ADA ramps, the slopes have been changed, and we're back in compliance with the state regulations on that. Each new development is required with a traffic study now before development starts. Cleaned up the drawings. The drawings were super scattered. Now they're a lot easier to find certain things, so on and so forth. And street signs, we had the decorative round poles. We changed those to square poles. They're easier to keep square and they're not spinning every time that we have a windstorm. Any questions?
That's great. Thank you. Any questions? I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we update our public works standards.
Second that.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, George. Any further discussion on the update? All in favor of approving the update to public works standards? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 5.7 is with regards to a law enforcement contract. Yes.
The reason is it's an update to public works standards, so it falls into the ordinances and stuff.
Great, thank you for.
Carrie Anderson,
Yay.
Mark Ruffalo,
Yay.
Eileen Moss,
Aye.
George Ray,
Yay.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Haley. Item number 5.7, which is an item to discuss possible police enforcement contract. We're currently with the county. They've done a fantastic job. I have no problems or qualms or issues whatsoever about their services. They have provided services to the city for many years, and we have never had an issue with it. The only item here is now that the county is not providing paramedic service contract with these services, which required us to go with the county. Darren and myself went out and asked other cities for bids and see if it was something that we wanted to entertain this time. We have a bid on the table from a proposal on the table from Farmington to provide these services. And I put it on the agenda to discuss and see if this is something you would want to entertain at this point in time, or if this is something you want to entertain in years to come. The Farmington contract is about $40,000 less than the current county sheriff contract. The county sheriff contract is going to go up another $35,000 to $40,000 next year, where the Farmington one would only go up about $10,000, $12,000. Farmington also threw in 4 public swim nights for, they would close off the pool and let Fremont residents swim in the pool.
Is that right?
No, I actually think it's actually just creativity. Like, they want to be better partners. They want to show that they care. And so I thought that was actually kind of cool.
It made me downright cold for the first meeting.
Yeah.
First night.
But in a kind of weird roundabout way, I think it would be neat if we could potentially use something like that for maybe inviting families of people on base to come and use that night and kind of make it more of a spouse and family and friends night. I don't know, just throwing some random things out. But I had a conversation last night with a guy from military member, and his wife was like, we want to be more involved in the community. So what can we do as a community to get you more involved? It's like, if there's ever an event, if there's ever something that we can attend that's low or no cost, we would love to be involved in those things. Anyway, totally random topic. I don't need to get off or digress. So at this point, like I present this to City Council and ask for your thoughts and if you would want to motion to make a change this year.
I'm grateful that you are seeing the future forecasting. You're realizing that our budget may not be able to sustain continual increases with sheriff's department. So looking for alternatives is important. So for me, I think it's always healthy just to look and see what there is out there.
Well, I think with Farmington, it's gonna be a maximum of 6%. With the sheriff department, we don't know what that's gonna be until January of the year when they look at all their costs that are associated. I also think with Farmington, we could maybe build other relationships with them and have a little bit more negotiating power on stuff. If we have the police, fire, I mean, who knows where we could go with this.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts? George Ray, you're about to say something, man. You're about to explode.
I don't know if I can do that.
Your eyebrows went up, your mouth opened.
Well, I had to find my document. With the county, we had a specific service level agreement, didn't we, of 8 hours per day. And on their quote, we've got patrol present 24 hours a day, 365 a year. What does that mean?
So that means very specifically that they are going to districtize, Farmington is going to districtize their police department. They have 3 officers on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We would be in the northern division. If there's a call at Station Park, obviously the deputy or the officer assigned to this area would move, but their assignment would be that they would provide a police presence 24 hours, 365.
It would become a part of their patrolling duties in that area.
100%. We would, similar to the fire department, we're not contracting on hours, we're contracting on the percentage, yeah.
And that sector is from Smiths north, so the majority of that section would be Fruit Heights.
So just point of clarification, that's not necessarily saying that we would have a police officer in Fruit Heights 24 hours a day.
Correct.
That's not what that's saying.
Right.
There would just be an officer assigned to that sector.
Right.
So it would be, no one really knows what time they would be here, which is communicating.
Right. And what I kept on hearing from Farmington, and they said it many times, like the level of service that you will get, you won't, it will be so different, it'll be night and day. Because we will have, again, from Shepherd Lane north assigned to that sector 24 hours a day. So if something's going on at Smith, obviously there wouldn't be just a patrol officer, a police officer roaming our streets. But it would be a different mentality as compared to contracting for 8 hours a day. We would become part of their force and that we would see presence 24 hours a day.
What I also like is West Point, South Weaver is further away from Farmington. So if we have an issue here, they can respond, either the person in that section or somebody else in the Farmington area. Where now, if all 3 officers or the sheriff are at West Point, it can take 10, 15 minutes to get there. But then again, we still have Farmington and Kaysville to back up. But it makes sense that there's so much closer.
Do you know how many officers Farmington, I mean, will it only run three officers at a time, or do they have times of day when they have, maybe a roaming officer go with the 3?
Great question. So from my understanding, they actually have 4. They have 3 officers and they have 1 person in charge. I forgot his name, but it's a title. That is,
It's either sergeant or lieutenant. So Farmington City, the way they approach it officers that are actually, which are the three, that are actually out patrolling the city and actively driving. And that's part of their responsibilities. They also have, I would say either the sergeant or something that's on time, that's on duty too. So if there's another incident or something like that, they still have an officer available to come if it's something that's, where they need a sergeant or lieutenant to come to. There's always that individual that's on duty during those shifts with them.
And that's exactly what we're getting with the sheriff's department. When I went on the ride along on the swing shift, they had an officer in Fruit Heights, one in South Weaver, and then West Point. And they have that kind of roaming sergeant that's either in the office or can come out and help. So they have 3 on each shift, and Farmington would have 3 on each shift. So we're not going down the way of service.
Let me clarify. So what I was trying to say is they have 3 and 1, where in the evening, it's only 3. The sergeant or lieutenant, whoever that is actually in a car patrolling. So they don't have the backup during the night hours.
They're graveyard shift.
Graveyard, yes. So, and let me just kind of clarify, like, I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to sell you on this. I know this is kind of something that I'm throwing at you kind of new. And if you need time to think about it, if we want to kick this down the road a year, I'm okay with that. I just want you to be aware that this is something that could save our budget. $40,000 is our deficit we're in right now, pretty much. And that's what we pretty much would see with this agreement. So I throw it out there and let you guys decide.
Yeah.
Can I add a little more data?
Yeah.
There's a website called policescorecard.org. I have no clue what it's about, but I pulled it up and started looking around. Farmington scores a 52%. Kaysville scores, where'd that one go? It comes after H. Kaysville scores a 53%. Layton, for comparison's sake, scores, and I don't know if this data is any good, but Layton scores, I already looked it up, it was 63, but I'm going to verify that that's the case. Scores, 61%, and then they also do the sheriff's office as well, the sheriff's department. And Davis County was rated at 28%. So I don't know if the data in here is any good or not, but from looking at it, as we've discussed it, I don't see a downside for going with Farmington. The fire hasn't been perfect, but it's been, normal.
Okay.
I just wonder is there anybody, one concern perhaps, because I like the idea too, but if a Farmington police officer pulls up, is there anybody in the city that's going to go, I have to listen to you, you're Farmington? Whereas if the Davis County Sheriff, they know.
They're going to rebrand. It'll say proudly serving Farmington and Fruit Heights.
And then we would have to communicate that out to our residents that we're making a change.
Similar to how we did with fire.
Yeah.
Personally, I like the idea, but I'm a little uncomfortable with making the choice tonight. I would be comfortable. I would want to consider it for next year. I would be totally open to doing
What
that.
about, can we wait 2 weeks? Can we wait till our 3 weeks, whatever our next meeting is? Can we wait?
Yes. We can do whatever you want. Like,
Yes.
I have already notified Farmington that we're not going to move forward. Just because I didn't want them to feel like they were waiting on us to finalize their budget. I said, don't count on us. There's no reason for it. We're not going to do it this year. There's a chance next year. I just said that because I didn't want them to wait for us, and I didn't want them to feel like they needed to put pressure on us to decide quickly. This is not a decision that I want to take lightly.
But is it too late for their budget if we do it in 2 weeks?
No, it's never a problem for their budget because their budget's going to be,
They're going to move forward anyway.
whatever they're doing. An additional $280,000 to their budget definitely won't hurt it. I can promise you that.
So, the sheriff runs their fiscal year January, we run July, Farmington would obviously run July 1st.
Their there's some notification processes that we have to go through with the county if we're going to move over. I think we're 3 months out, so I wouldn't want to push this off too much longer, but we are in no time frame.
I mean, we've had Mark go talk to them. I don't know if it's a good idea that we give other council members an option to do a little more research like George is doing on his computer right now.
The only reason Mark is doing that is because he was assigned as the
Right.
liaison.
I understand that, but where we're making such a big change, maybe it would be a good idea for other council members to have more than half a minute
Yeah.
to look at this. So
I
I
think 2 minutes if you want.
I would like to make a motion that we just table this until our next meeting and make our final decision at that point.
Now, okay. Sorry, with that motion, sorry, we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second, great. So with that motion, is there any information that I can get for you? Good or bad, one way or the other, county or Farmington, whatever it might be that might help the council?
Or is there a way, because it was very eye-opening for me, is there a way that they could maybe meet with Farmington or the sheriff department so you can compare apples to apples? Or could we have them come in and do a little presentation?
We can.
I don't know.
Yeah. So the only challenge that I have is I don't want them in the meeting. I don't want to invite a whole bunch of people in the meeting when we're talking about them. So if there's a time, I'm all for setting something up, but I don't want to say, yeah, county, oh yeah, Farmington, come in, we're going to talk about you in the next city council meeting.
Well, I personally would like to make a few minutes, to maybe explore with council members from Farmington and residents of Farmington that I know and
I love it.
just because this is relatively new,
Yep.
and just give us
Okay.
2 weeks.
Yeah, I support that completely. So we have a motion and a second. We're having further discussion. Is there anything else that anyone else would like to see?
The only thing that I would mention, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is when I went to Farmington, I wasn't that high on it, but when I met with them, it was a big difference. It was very eye-opening.
I wonder if you sat down with the sheriff, what your impression would be.
I've met with Sheriff Sparks twice already.
Sheriff Sparks.
I like
fantastic.
Sheriff Sparks is
A
a
lot.
fantastic guy. What does concern me though, is in the last meeting that Darren and I were with, he said, you know, if you guys want to go somewhere else, he's okay with it. That makes me nervous. Are they wanting to maybe eventually down the road, 3 years, 5 years from now, kind of get out of patrolling contracted cities? I mean, why would somebody say that to your customer?
So-
it just makes me concerned.
I know that last year they tried to push us to 365 and it was going to go to $675,000 a year. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. Like, that's never going to happen. One of the big challenges that I have is that the county treasurer is the one that's setting all the budgets and he's the one that's pushing all the numbers. Where in Farmington, the police chief is actually the one that's setting the budgets. So we can talk to Sheriff Sparks all we want and we can negotiate all we want, whatever we want, but he's not the decision maker. It's actually the treasurer, where in Farmington.
It's the auditor.
Auditor. You're right. Kook.
Yeah.
Cuckoo.
He's the guy.
Curtis Cuckoo.
Curtis Koch.
Yeah, you're right. Where the police chief is actually the guy making the decisions, and he's the one that we would be able to hold accountable. It's not the city council, it's not the mayor per se, it would be directly him. Just like the,
Mark, are you gonna ride along with Farmington?
No, I asked him if we went forward, could I? Now, I don't have a problem going back to the chief and saying, hey, we're kind of talking about this, and in city council meeting, it kind of suggested, since I did a ride along with the sheriff's department, could I do a ride along with, say, the officer that would be more of this northern Farmington, and just get a comparison?
I think that would be worthwhile. You're gonna get a feel for how that officer interacts with the public. I've been very impressed with the sheriff's office. They don't feel like, I've never felt like they're power hungry. They're not, kind of my way or the highway kind of people. They've been great to our citizens treat everybody like people and not suspects. And so I think to do that with a authority officer might be eye-opening. In that, you know, they'll either feel good about it or you won't.
And see how they would do things, ask
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah,
And what I'd want to do is probably pick the swing shift, like I did with the sheriff department.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more activity in the swing shift than the graveyard.
And you, Mark, the chief did say, yeah, anytime you're welcome to, any of the council members are welcome to come and run off if they'd like to see how that goes. So that was offered by Chief Johnson.
Are you okay if I reach out to him directly, or do you think you need to go through that?
No. He, in that meeting, he said he's welcome to talk to any one of our council members if they have questions about what they do, how they feel like they patrol, and how, he recommends his officers get to know the community. He says it's not uncommon for an officer to stop and play a pickup game with a bunch of kids playing basketball for 15 or 20 minutes in the neighborhood. Because that's the only way, that you can start, you yourself will start trusting an officer if he's part of that community. And that's their focus at the beginning.
And one thing I was impressed with when the meeting started, I said, I got a great way for you to make a lot of money in Farmington. If you have an officer sit down at this three-way stop down here, you can make a lot of money because so many people run the stop sign going south. And he says, yeah, but we don't do citations to make money. And I don't want my officers sitting to try to write citations. I'd rather have them driving on the streets, which I thought that was good because in the past, about a year ago, the sheriffs weren't driving the streets as they are. Yeah, so that was impressive.
So going to this, I've got a motion from Eileen and a second from George to table this for 2 weeks. I think the discussion's been really helpful. I think we've had some good ideas, marching orders. I will, all in favor of tabling this item for 2 weeks, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I'm actually going to open up a tabled item from earlier, item number 5.1. I was going to tell you, I jumped online, and if you go to review and you click on markup, and you change it to simple markup, and you go to track changes, it actually takes away what you were looking for. So on the document,
All by clicking on the.
by
right.
clicking on review, and then you go over to the far right, which is markup, show markup.
Wait, so Emily,
You go to review at the top of the page,
review.
and on the far right, you have one that's right next to the 3 dots, markup. Go to markup on page, and then you go over to track changes, and you say just mine, and then you accept all changes. It'll delete all the ones that aren't there, and it shows that there's comments there still. So the 3-inch was clarified, and it says the residents are to pay for anything over 1 inch.
Did you just say accept all changes? Is that what you just said?
But accept all changes on mine.
mine, or just mine,
Oh, just mine.
just mine. But it's still, like, it's still is showing in there,
But if you,
cash deposit and that kind of stuff, it shouldn't be there.
if you hover over it, it should show you comment and or something that's
But see,
right.
that part shouldn't be there. Also submitted here with this cash deposit, that shouldn't be there.
I'll have that fixed. I will put one together with all the changes and I'll update it to you for the next council meeting.
Great, sorry, I tried to do that, but anyway, let's keep moving on. Item number 5.8, as I discussed earlier, it has not been approved by Planning Commission, so that will be tabled item. Item number 7.1, City Council meeting minutes of May 21st. What?
April?
That's upcoming meetings. Calendar, I'm so sorry. City Council meeting, May 21st, 2024, and the Planning Commission, May 30th, 2024. Minutes, we have item number 8, city council meeting minutes from April 23rd. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I move that we approve city council meeting minutes for April 23rd, 2020.
Thank you, Flo.
I second it.
Second from Mark. All in favor of approving the minutes from April 23rd, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain.
Okay. Someone didn't read them.
Yep. Someone didn't read them, someone didn't.
Participate. City council reports. Gary Anderson.
Most of what I have is stuff that you're aware of from planning commission because we talked about it. So we had a healthy discussion, or well, I guess planning commission had a healthy discussion last week, and that's about it for this week.
Great, thank you. Mark, do you have anything? Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Contacted Chief Love concerning the request that you made from including in his quarterly updates some additional information. That quarterly report will be provided at our next city council meeting, and hopefully Chief Love will be here as part of it.
So the request I made is I wanted to know exactly how many calls within Fruit Heights went out to dispatch, and how many were Kaysville responded to and Farmington was not.
And then the police conversation went there, that was eye-opening. Update on the Veterans Memorial Project. The committee has picked out the stones or rocks to use to match up with the building. The vendor came on site yesterday to look at the installation of that. He would put the stones in the cement at his shop and then rent a crane to lift them into the positions. We would need the city staff to clean out or disconnect the sprinklers that are in there. And then in those areas, they would need to dig 5 inches down, 29 inches wide, and roughly 7 feet long. So he can just come and bury that cement 5 inches into the ground.
Did you talk to city staff about those requests?
Yes.
Okay.
I talked to Derek. I apologize, I didn't talk to him. Well, it's still gonna be a ways off because we haven't done the donations and that, but I wanted him to look at it and see if he could do it.
Still think we should wait till this.
And I think if we do put it in sooner, I mean, you know, somebody who does it, they're gonna have to, if they damage it, they'll have to pay to fix it. But we're still a ways off. We gotta get donations going and things like that.
Just to clarify, all the pledged money would cover the cost of those rocks and the installation of those rocks.
It's getting close, but we haven't really advertised it on Facebook, or the website, or really not really doing a project like this. So the pledge is, it could cost about $8,900. The pledges we have now are about, without really, it's just people on the committee that have talked to people that. I met with the city staff about how to handle the collection of donations, and they came up with some very good ideas. They could look at a QR code. They could do links on the website and links on Facebook. We're waiting for PDFs on the stone design so that we can then advertise the project and get the donations going. And then Paula, one of our community people, has developed a very good application form in the way of gathering names and donations that we can put on the city website. And Karen and the city staff said that they could just click on that link, go to things where they can pay on there, they can fill out the form, so we should be covered there. And she did a fantastic job on that. Founders Day update, the chalk has been ordered and will be delivered here by May 17th. They're gathering bids right now for portable restrooms. They're working on the mass gathering permit from the county, and the car show organizer has confirmed the date, and he will be meeting with the committee on June 7th to work out some of the specific details. Last time we had a couple of hiccups where the band was supposed to be playing and he started to pack up, so they're going to work out all that timing on June 7th with the staff. barbecue update. This thing is very surprising to me. We have 100% attendance.
I can't go.
We really didn't want you there. But,
You invited him?
yeah. But I just think that's kind of cool because there's different dynamics of people on the staff and city council, and I think we could have a fun time. Around the 1st of June, what we'll do is send out a sign-up sheet for food assignments. And hopefully Haley or Karen can work with that to where we can send out food assignments. My wife will go through and see what we need. So if we want 3 desserts, and somebody could sign up for, you know, a dessert or salad, whatever. But we'll let Haley or Karen, people that are smarter, figure out how to get that out to everybody. And then I met today with a Tague Flint, who heads up the large service projects for the cities. He can also help us in setting up smaller service projects throughout the year and train us on how we can use the Just Serve website for posting city needs. And this one I did talk to Darren and to Lane on.
Good.
He told me that September 7th will be the large community project for the 9/11 service day. So Lane, I think, you know, we need to, if we can, come up with a big project. I asked him if he knew Kaysville or Farmington had something big that we could participate in like we did last year. But I know the couple of years before that, you had them do a lot of work on the Gailey Trail or Nichols Trail, whatever it's called. So I think we need to start thinking of some service projects. And then Darren, I need to get with you if you think we need to have him come in and meet with a couple of us to look at how to put it on Just Serve, or if we even want to go down that path or whatever. I mean, like I reported last month, we did have a small youth group that came and helped with getting garbage out of that trail. So if we could take advantage of more of that.
Great, awesome.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Flo.
Okay, YCC met last night, they're getting 10 new applicants that want to join. And so, and there, I don't know how many they're losing, but I think that's 2 extra. But it was so wonderful to hear them. I just observed them trying to figure out their bylaws and maybe change them, and they're trying to learn how to do it in an appropriate way with the decorum. Robert's rules. So it was really interesting to watch them. They are doing a Saturday, May 18th party at Nichols Park. So we're all invited, and that's to celebrate the end of school. And they want to invite lots of children. They want to invite all the children in the city. And last year we did that. And so that's at 10 o'clock.
But no
pie.
No pie throwing.
Not this year.
My shirt still stinks because of
That's
that.
what they were saying too. Okay, then I'm invited to a meeting tomorrow for 4th of July with Kaysville City, so we'll see how that goes. But already the new parade lady has asked me to come up with 10 volunteers that will work from 7:30 to noon on the 4th of July, help check in people for the floats and help clean up, get them lined up, and anyway. So if we can, maybe your friend that you talked to, that you said wanted to help on the days or something.
Oh, right.
So anyway, if we can get 10 people to help out on 4th of July morning, that's what they would do for us.
Great. Thank you. Eileen, welcome home.
Thank you. I'll go back just a little bit to the shakeout. Some areas had better than, that had for participation. Some areas had a little bit worse. Kind of depends a lot on area coordinators. Really think it does help to recognize some of our emergency preparedness people. It makes them feel a little more wanted. And so I could continue doing that, maybe look at, again, another little get together later in the summer, like we did last year, just to show appreciation for what they do for us. They are very much behind the scenes, but also very much ready to act if needed.
Awesome. Thank you.
My wife would kill me, but we could use our backyard if you want. And she increased her numbers.
Councilmember Ray.
I don't think I have anything at this moment.
Awesome.
Kind of a slacker.
That's fantastic. I don't have anything right now. Lane or Jeff, do you have anything?
No, no more.
Lane,
1800 East, moving along good, water lines in, pressure tested, percent samples. Yeah, waiting for it to dry out.
wow, that's impressive. That's quick.
How long do you think before there'll be a road there, depending on if it dries? I mean, if it dries out, what's our,
If conditions permit, I'll bet there's a road there in June.
and then what's the plan for, repairs to Fruit Loops?
As soon as.
I got that one. So I actually met with the trail builder today. We actually went and walked the whole site up there. They actually can start on the trails right now.
Okay,
And they're available. He just sent me an email right before, because I said I need a price, because it would be a change order to the project. He thinks it'd take between 7 to 10 days to get all the upper trail rebuilt and do some repairs on the other trails, because we walked every one of them. And anywhere between, he said about $1,200 a day to fix everything, and between 5 to 10 days. So I was actually about to cancel about that. My report about if that's something that they're willing to do a change order on to have that trails put back.
Yes.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, we've had a few emails talking about it, and I think we should continue to prove it.
We put money in the project for repairing the trails.
yeah, so,
We just didn't know if we were gonna get trail builder back. They've been in St. George and stuff like that, and actually talking with the trail builder today. He probably got a month, and then he'll be in North Carolina or Colorado.
oh, so do it.
Yeah.
So, and where does that land on that's bottom of the shoreline going in above Rock Lock Bridge? Where
I've lost communication with Forest Service, so maybe Jeff happens to have communication with them now. That, I know from talking, they've come and walked it, but I don't know if there's an alignment that they've picked out that the trail can start being built on.
Yeah, I met with them once. They're looking at, some alternatives to, crossing some of the drainages. And depending on where those crossings are, that dictates where the trail's gonna be, but it's all still trying to come together. I mean, I had hoped that this would all be built this year, and I still do. But, time they get done fiddling around with whatever they do, I don't know what we're gonna have for builders. But it's still in the works, let's just put it that way. And we're still hopeful it's gonna happen.
And then laying on that water, once you pressurize it and test it, then I would assume you'd notify those 5 homeowners so they can no longer have to use their internal pumps.
Well, I will, yes, I will.
Do we have water hydrants, fire hydrants up on the 1800 now? 5? Excellent, that's fantastic, thank you. Darren, do you have anything else?
No, I was just gonna report on that, and we're still continuing to work on the budget, so we'll have more information. So if there's things that city council sees or has questions, please call.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, we actually have an item number 12 to move into closed session, and I would entertain a motion to move into closed session.
I motion that we move into a closed session.
I second that.
All in favor of moving into closed session, say aye.
Aye.